Well, there will be a game 5, Rhino. Yeah, everyone's got to make their travel arrangements and get their butts back to Boston for a game 5 on Sunday.
Apparently, the champagne wasn't cold enough in Dallas. They
Yeah.
keep it at a brisk 32 in Boston.
It's hard to beat a team 4 times in a row. I mean, you saw Minnesota and Dallas, right? I mean, that looked like it was going to be a sweep, and then it wasn't. And it's hard to beat a team 4 times in a row. And I think that Boston now will be at a fever pitch to wrap it up on Sunday at home.
Yeah, I agree. It kind of felt like a once in a series performance. I was impressed with what Dallas did. They hustled a little bit more, better defense, but to me, this was still more about what the Celtics didn't do and more than what Dallas did.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Give Dallas credit. They got off the mat. Luka was great. He responded to the criticism after game 3, and Dallas played a perfect game. Wouldn't you call it a perfect game?
Yeah, anytime the Boston starters are minus 146 going into the third quarter, you've done a pretty good job. 10 turnovers between the big 3.
Yeah. Again, it's hard to win 4 games in a row against a team. It happens. It may happen in a hockey series with Florida being up 3-love. But you look at, history. Boston's the better team. We know they're the better team. They should be able to close the deal at home. But I would think the game on Sunday is going to be very close. I don't think it's going to be a blowout any way, shape, or form. I think it will be a close game.
Yeah, I agree with you. It'll be closer. I think the big separator tonight, Grant, which we will see on Sunday, is Dallas made more shots in a row this game, which didn't let Boston get out in transition. And when Boston gets out in transition, Luka is not usually back in time, and it's a mess to guard. So that should change.
Yeah, very, very good point right there. All right, we can talk this game, post game, whatever you want. If you want to talk about something else going on in the world of sports, we can do that as well. We invite your calls, your chat messages. We are happy to have you here as we wrap up the week. We hope that you dads out there are getting ready for a great Father's Day, or if you're not a dad and you're going to be spending it with your father, have a very happy Father's Day. You can check out my Father's Day podcast, which I dropped this morning. You can go to your favorite podcast platform, or you can go to my website, ifyoudon'tlikethat.com or grantnapier.com. Ryno's put the link up for you to call the show. You can also use the QR code as well over my shoulder.
Yeah, get in here. I'm looking forward to listening to your Father's Day podcast. Your dad meant a lot to you.
Yep.
I know you made a point to get to New York and get him to the Garden anytime you were in town.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I reflect a lot about that experience for me growing up with so many games that we went to, both professional and college, and then spend time talking about how I was able to give that back to my boys and reflect on, what it was like to be a father to my 2 boys and share with them the love of sports the way my dad did with me and my brother. So, yeah, you can check it out today when you get an opportunity, my podcast, again, on your favorite podcast platform, or if you don't like that. Father's Day weekend, there's a lot going on. You got the final round of the U.S. Open. I don't know if you've been watching any of that. And then, of course, you've got the NBA game following that.
So what's an ideal Grant Napier Father's Day look like?
Well, it changes based on the period of time in my life. Prior to having kids, different than having kids. Right now, we really enjoy watching the final round of the U.S. Open in the afternoon on Father's Day. As a matter of fact, it's something that I've done pretty much every year since my kids got into golf and enjoy watching that with me, particularly my older son, Trent. He loves golf. He plays golf a couple days a week. And so we normally will watch from opening coverage to the final shot on Sunday, the U.S. Open. We'll barbecue. I'll cook some food in the backyard on the grill, whatever the case may be. But that's generally what that entails on Sunday. What about you?
You know what? Exactly the same. It's Liam doesn't watch sports with me as much, but watching the final round of the U.S. Open, usually doing a little breakfast instead of the barbecue so I can watch the golf tournament and just being with family, being with my father, and just celebrating, being together. It's what it's all about.
Yeah, it is. It is about being together. And, being in California for a long period of time and going to college out of the state of New York, uh, I didn't really get a chance to share many Father's Days with my dad after I graduated from college. I was always home for the 4 years I was at college on Father's Day weekend. And so I was always with my dad. But when I moved and started working in central Illinois in 1984 and then moved to California in 87, it was very infrequent that I was with my dad on Father's Day weekend because, he was on the other side of the country. And I didn't get home as often as maybe I would have liked in June because of work
Sure.
related reasons. So, but then when you have your own family and you have kids, and then my dad passed in, 2007, as you well know, being a dad, it, takes a different meaning on.
Certainly does. And back then, just a phone call. These days
Yeah.
you can FaceTime if you're separated, but getting on the phone, talking whatever if you're not together, because you, my friend, were on the run, college, and then you were
Yeah.
gone.
Yeah. I was gone. I mean, when I left for college at age 18, that was it. I really never lived back in New York ever again, except for, my summers during college. So that was it. I was gone. I was out of state, and then I kept on moving further and further west and ended up in California. So you never really know where your life takes you. A lot of turns, a lot of twists, a lot of different directions. And that's where the road led me out to Sacramento for, a great period of time.
Yep. And in some ways, the road led your kids right to the same spot you were in, because you
Yeah,
got a really unique perspective going to games at the ages that you did, as many as you did. But then you kind of forwarded that because your kids got a closer perspective to the game and
they
were
did.
around that.
And I share this on my podcast. Here's the difference, though. I was able to sit with my dad and enjoy all of those games. As the announcer for the Kings, I wasn't able to sit with my kids and share the memories the way I had those memories with my dad. But as I was announcing the Kings games at Arco, when we were on the opposite side of where my family seats were, I could look into the stands and see my kids cheering and jumping up and down, and the joy was from a different perspective. Now, we
Sure.
went to football games and things of that nature where we did sit together, but you have to understand all of those games that my boys were at Arco Arena and then Golden One Center, but not as much. I wasn't with them unless the game was on national TV and we weren't doing the game. Then I could sit with them on a rare occasion, and that was a very different situation. And again, I'm saying this just for sake of clarity.
Sure.
Sitting with my boys in the stands at Arco was not like sitting in the stands at Yankee Stadium or Madison Square Garden or whatever with my dad, because nobody knew us. When I had a rare night off and sat in the stands, I was talking with many, 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 many Kings fans during the game who would want to come up and talk to me while I
Yeah.
was watching the game with my kids. You understand what I mean?
I,
I'm not saying it was bad, but it was a different experience,
I
because
would
I was not only trying to share that experience with my boys, but I also had to, being a public figure and being the
Sure.
announcer for the team, having that responsibility as well.
You weren't exactly watching the game per se with your boys. You were with the boys while the game was going on.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, there were a lot of great experiences, and I shared a lot of those on my podcast, so you can check it out.
Go check that out for sure. That is always a great one.
Yeah. All right. So we have a busy weekend with the U.S. Open at the halfway point. The course did play like a monster today. I mean,
Yes.
the course was the winner today.
Holy moly, Grant. It was like the greens were like concrete.
Yeah.
But because of that, there were some really special shots, though, around the green as well.
Yeah, there were. And the best golfers are going to be at the top. There are exceptions. Scotty Scheffler barely making the cut at 5 over. Tiger missing the cut. But there are a lot of big names that missed the cut this weekend at Pinehurst, number 2.
Yeah, Scheffler barely made it, as
Yeah.
you pointed out. So we'll see if he can make a run. What's interesting to me is Rory McIlroy, Grant. I'm not
Yeah.
sure if you had a chance to hear him speak. His mindset, his maturity is coming in about the appreciation for the game,
Yeah.
relearning certain aspects, being a student.
Yeah, you can still learn, even though he's a seasoned golfer and one of the best in the history of the game. You can always learn, and he's right in the mix. So we'll see what
Yep.
happens with Rory coming up tomorrow. Great to have everyone here. Happy weekend to both of you from Manila. Manila in the Philippines. That sounds pretty good right now, doesn't it? That would be a good Father's Day weekend.
I could do that pretty easily. No complaints here.
Yeah, it's only be a for you, 15-hour flight.
Yeah, and
So
there's no Bennett's in Manila either. So
no, but they have some. I think you'd enjoy the food there. I've never been there, but I've heard that there are great opportunities for you to enjoy a meal. So I think you'd be okay. But you're right. There's definitely no Bennett's. That's for
no
sure.
Bennett's. Gotta get to Bennett's. Gotta
Yep.
get to Bennett's.
Are you ready for some calls?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's bring Corn Dog in. Good evening tonight, Corn Dog.
Con dog.
Corn dog, con dog. Just don't call me a hot dog. Even though I talk about Costco hot dogs all the time, but that's a King's Court thing.
Yeah. What's up, man?
Yeah.
So Dallas just played ball, man. They just did not let the Celtics get anything inside. The Celtics 3 just wasn't falling, and that they played, the way that Dallas's defense played throughout the playoffs, that caused, Thunder team to struggle at some points, caused the Clippers to struggle, and caused, the T-Wolves to struggle. And this was the team we were expecting, to see for, the first half of this finals, when maybe they woke up, and we might see it for the second half and maybe make this a little bit of a series. But, it's going back to Boston, and there's 2 games left at Boston if it goes to 7, which is not favorable at this point. Actually being down at this point where everything's a must win. But, Dallas just played ball. I mean, there was that point where Boston had 25 and Luka had 21 on his own. Like, it was just one of those days where a team got beat. They got beat bad.
Yeah, I think we'll see a different Boston team on Sunday, and I'll be surprised if they don't wrap it up at home. I really will. But we'll see. That's why you play the games. Dallas, I give them a lot of credit for how they performed this evening. They were great. They were really, really good.
Yeah, this was a good game, man, from Dallas. I mean, I kind of stopped watching a little bit in the fourth quarter because it was
Most
kind of
people
a wrap.
did.
Yeah, it was just that type of game, and and then we got the other finals that was also 3-0 with the NHL. I feel like both leagues were kind of just almost hitting panic button. Like, we can't have sweeps in both of our finals. NHL and NBA, that's just not a good look for the league, and any league in general.
No, it's not. It's not. This was a big night for the NBA to extend the series. And if it ends on Sunday, it will still be a very disappointing playoff run for the NBA when the conference finals only went 4-0 and 4-1. And if you follow that up with a 4-1 finals, that's a really bad postseason for the league.
Yeah, and then obviously NHL, they had a pretty good conference finals, but right now their finals is not it's not it.
Yeah, well, I give Florida a lot of credit. I mean, they are very well coached by Paul Maurice. They have shut down the best offensive team in hockey with the 2 best offensive players in hockey for all intents and purposes in Draisaitl and McDavid, and they've stymied them. They've stopped their power play. Florida has clearly been the better team. They're getting superior goaltending. I mean, Bobrovsky, much better than Skinner in goal. I mean, Florida, I give them a lot of credit. They really look good. They really look good.
The other thing about Florida is you would have thought they were down 4-1, not up 4-1 after the second period. The pressure they put on, it's just immense. They don't change the way they play throughout the periods, and I really respect that.
And I think being in the Stanley Cup Finals last year, has really propelled Florida this year. I mean, they had a tremendous regular season, tremendous job in the postseason, and they were able to take the defeat to Vegas last year and turn that into a real positive this year. I give them a lot of credit. I really do. That's a hell of a hockey team.
Yeah, man. That's just the way it's been going. And they just have been stopping Oilers at every turn. The Oilers just can't find a way to get through the Florida defense, man. It's been rough for them, and they're again talented offensive players. They have some of the best in the world, this, and it's just they can't get
Yeah.
through. It's they're hitting a brick wall.
Yeah. Well, again, in order to win a Stanley Cup, you have to have great goaltending. Vegas got great goaltending from Adin Hill last year in the playoffs. He was great. You are seeing great goaltending right now by Sergei Bobrovsky. He's been great. You can't win a Stanley Cup without great goaltending. Good goaltending will not win you a cup. It's got to be great goaltending, and you're seeing that on the side of Florida.
And they've had it almost the entire year. They almost dropped a goal a game, or picked up a goal a game, I should say, with the goaltending. So they have done it all season, kind of like the Celtics in the NBA.
Yep. Very true. Yep.
Yeah. Speaking of goaltending, if you've ever watched, soccer or World Cup soccer at the very least international, a great goaltender can change, an average team to a good team. It's just, the goalies can just, change a total impact of a game in soccer and in hockey. Like it's just, when you're just not making stuff, and it just, gets into you. You're like, man, I cannot get anything on this guy. He's just all over the place. And it happens, and it happened, Team USA back in the day when they had Tim Howard, I think he had a game where he blocked like 17 of Belgium's shot or something. And like that Belgian team was way better than USA, but that game was close because of great goaltending from Tim Howard.
Here's what I know, and I'm learning the hockey game. You both know this. I've been transparent about it. But anytime a goalie is outside the goal area and defending shots and not just redirecting the puck, he's feeling himself. And Bob was doing that last night. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah. It's been amazing to watch. But Condog, appreciate it, man. Thank you very much for chiming in.
Yep. Let's hope for more finals, actually, in my opinion. I want more finals.
All right, man. Take care. Appreciate you. Want to tell you that we are brought to you in part by New Works Plumbing of Sacramento. Make sure you check them out for all of your plumbing needs and repairs. Just go to sacserviceplumbing.com or call the number on your screen. New Works Plumbing, they've got a fix for you, and they're available around the clock 24/7. That's sacserviceplumbing.com. New Works Plumbing, they've got a fix for you.
Day one with you. New Works is such a great company. They were out here not too long ago, so huge thanks to them.
Yeah, they're awesome. Absolutely. So if you want to call the show, like Condog, easy to do, and we would love to be able to talk with you. If not, you can use the chat message, and we will be able to answer your phone calls that way. Happy to do it.
Yep, bring it. And it doesn't have to be about basketball. It can be about anything you want to talk about. We are happy to chat it up with you. We had a lot of participation earlier today at 2:00. Good. Call again. If you'd like to call now, we'll get it done on a Friday night, Napes.
Yeah, on a Friday night, we wrap up the week and we get into the officially summer here in a couple of days. So we're knocking on the door next week. We will officially turn the calendar from spring to summer, which means that as soon as we wrap up the NBA, we'll turn our attention to the NBA draft right here on If You Don't Like That. So make sure you subscribe so you know when our shows are going to be forthcoming. So we'll talk NBA draft. We'll also get you into free agency when the calendar turns to July. So we've got a lot going on here. And before you know it, it will be football season. All right, speaking of football, I did a rant on this. Aaron Rodgers, you cannot come out in the beginning of January and call out your team and say that our focus needs to be on football, not just sometimes, all the time. We need to get rid of all the BS in the organization and blah, blah, blah. You can't say that and then not be there for mandatory minicamp. You can't have it both ways. You can't come out and talk that way. And then in June, regardless of how many days you were there for the voluntary OTAs, when it's a mandatory minicamp and you're the quarterback and you're on record as saying that everything has to be about football, 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 and we need to cut out the distractions and all the BS, and then you're not there for minicamp, I'm sorry, that doesn't fly. That you can't have it both ways.
Napes, I see your point, but at the same time, he has been there for everything up until this point, and I don't feel like the organization's handled it great either. They could have handled this internally. Obviously, they wanted to make it known that it was not an excused absence and hence a distraction.
Well, again, it's New York. He's Aaron Rodgers. It is, the number one media market, and you cannot come out with the comments can I read them for you?
Yeah, please do.
Okay. Here are the comments that Aaron Rodgers made back in, I want to get the exact date. All right. I want to say it was January 8th or January 9th. Here we go. January 8th. Quote, anything that doesn't have anything to do with winning needs to be assessed. So anything in this building that we're doing individually or collectively that has nothing to do with real winning needs to be assessed. It's not a half the time thing. It's not a sometimes thing. It's not a most of the time thing. It's an every time thing. If you want to be a winning organization and to put yourself in position to win championships and be competitive, everything you do matters. And the bullshit has nothing to do with winning, needs to get out of the building. So that will be the focus moving forward. Let me repeat a key phrase here, okay? It's not a halftime thing. It's not a sometimes thing. It's not a most of the time thing. It's an every time thing. Well, Aaron Rodgers is not at mandatory minicamp. Does that sound like it's an every time thing to him? You can't say that and then not be there. I'm sorry. You know, had he not said that on January 9th, I would agree with you. Not a big deal. He's been there every day. But he said that. He's your quarterback. He's your future Hall of Famer. He's on record as saying it needs to be an every time thing. He's not there. That's not an every time thing. He's contradicting himself.
Yeah, it's a fair point. Yeah, I'm glad you read that for me, especially you throw a bullshit bomb in there. Yeah. It's pretty strong. Yeah.
So I'm sorry. You can't have it both ways, Ryno.
You're absolutely right, Napes. I will concede that to you.
All right, let's get to some more phone calls.
Jay, happy Friday, my friend.
Happy Friday. How you guys doing?
How are you, buddy?
Good. I guess we'll talk about Aaron Rodgers since you brought it up. I didn't know about that, but I guess you could say Monday Night Football of the 2023 football season, NFL season. 4 downs, less than 4 downs into it, we know he snaps his Achilles, which I didn't think it was hilarious. However, I was talking to my girlfriend because we were watching the game. I was like, yo, this guy's a geriatric quarterback pretty much. And then the 3rd down happens and he snaps his Achilles. And I'm like,
whoa. Geriatric quarterback. What are you talking about? He just won the MVP, a season before.
He's 40 years old. And this is a high.
He just won the most valuable player 1 season removed. He was the most valuable player of the National Football League 1 year removed. He's not a geriatric quarterback. That's a geriatric quarterback. That's not fair, Jay.
I see where you're coming from. And I don't say that to take away from his Hall of Fame, and his legacy. I say that to say a lot of players, and it's not just Aaron Rodgers, there's a lot of players that have to let go of that light, if that makes sense. Like there are players, and the same thing happens to me and Ryno. We're talking about the UFC. There's 45-year-old men in there fighting to this day. And it's just like, you guys have to know like when to put your health and safety first. And it's such a high contact sport like football. Being 40 years old, Aaron Rodgers, we know he's a great quarterback. There's no need to continue to try to prove yourself or push for one more Super Bowl.
What would have you said to Tom Brady when he turned 40?
Same thing. He was 45 years old. That's unreasonable. I don't know why you're playing football.
But I mean, so why can't Aaron Rodgers win a Super Bowl when he's in his 40s?
It's not that I'm saying. Well, I guess in a way I am saying both of them should have not. They should, like, you're 40 years old playing football with these guys that are. It's a high contact sport. Even LeBron.
I disagree with you 100%. If you're able to play and play at a high level, keep on playing. Gordie Howe played, into his 50s. I mean, if you're able to play and compete, and in Tom Brady's case, winning a Super Bowl into his mid 40s, then you should do it. You're not. Why should you not? Now, I would say, and again, I don't want to speak out of both sides of my mouth, guys. I think that there are sports that it's probably not a good idea, such as boxing, okay,
MMA.
and the repeated blows to the head.
Yep.
Maybe UFC. I don't know enough about that sport to speak on it. I don't think there's enough data because it's a relatively new sport. But I mean,
There's
I'm not a fan of
there's a lot of
boxers
blows to the
going
head in that one.
What's that?
Sure. I said there's a lot of blows to the head in that one as well, and it's not just punching. You're getting kicked, elbow,
Yeah.
choked,
Yeah.
broken limbs. So that one's pretty brutal too. But
I mean, do you think LeBron James should retire now that he's going to be 40?
I think LeBron James is the GOAT. I know I contradict myself here.
Based on what you're saying, do you think that now he's just all of a sudden shouldn't play anymore?
I know I get where you're coming from, Grant, and I think my argument, respectfully, of course, would be the difference in physicality between basketball and football. It's a full contact sport in the NFL. Basketball, it's gotten way softer than past eras of basketball. So I think LeBron doesn't have to worry about getting, concussed for the most part, or getting what was the guy who snapped his Joe Theismann, was it?
Yes.
Or
Joe Theismann, Lawrence Taylor sacked him and he snapped his leg.
He doesn't have to worry about that. I mean, he might have to worry about an ACL tear or something like that, but not to the extent of a football player at 40 years old would have to worry about.
Well, again, Ryno, go ahead. I'm sorry. You go ahead.
I don't know. I think everything's different. Here's what I'd throw into the conversation. Had Aaron Rodgers retired from Green Bay, I feel like a lot of people would have thought he had a lot left in the tank. Don't you, Grant?
100%.
No, I think he was great already. I don't think he left anything on the table. And I would understand, because I'm thinking just the physicality alone, 37, 38 years old, I don't want to say old, but in that sport, that's a risk you're playing. And it's not, I mean, what if it's a running back? Does it change? Because now you're a workhorse kind of player and you're getting.
Well, there are no running backs in the NFL that are of that age. That doesn't happen because of the position
you're essentially getting hit when you do get hit, not by a 180-pound cornerback, but by these 280-pound edge rushers or 350-pound nose tackles. Like these guys, it's dangerous when you think about it at that age.
Well, it's dangerous getting into a automobile and driving an F1 car or an Indy car or a NASCAR. All sports, it's dangerous when you play baseball if you're a pitcher and you get hit in the head with a line drive back at you.
Yeah, that's very true.
I mean, every sport has risk, Jay. You can't just single out football because it's a contact sport. Every sport has risk. I mean, hockey has risks. I mean, we saw a fatality with a player getting their necks slashed. I mean, every sport has its risk. Every sport, but Aaron Rodgers, you make it sound like the guy can't play anymore, and he was 1 year removed. Well, wait a minute, he was 1 year removed from the most valuable player of the National Football League.
I understand that, and I should have rephrased it. I don't say it like he's a garbage quarterback. By geriatric, I mean he's taking a beating. He's getting up there in age. How much more can his body take? And
well, that's for him to decide.
That is true, or sometimes Father Time will decide for you, Grant.
Yes, you're exactly right, and maybe Aaron Rodgers is not a successful quarterback this year, and maybe he doesn't have a good season, and maybe this will be his final year. But I have never, even last year, or excuse me, the year before last, when I didn't think he played very well, I didn't say to myself, Aaron can't play anymore and he needs to retire. Ryan can jump on this more than I. We had that same conversation last year about Russell Wilson, did we not?
We absolutely did. The exact same conversation. And Jay, I want to kind of ask this question too about Aaron. It's like, yeah, he's great, but the reason these guys are the 1%ers is because great isn't good enough for them. And it's almost like that across the board. And Grant, Jay, this is an era where the quarterback's never been more protected.
Exactly.
Yes, I agree. They have obviously targeting calls, all of that stuff. They're quick to throw a flag. I'll tell you that 1 second late, and they're throwing that late hit flag. But that didn't save him from that Achilles either.
Yeah, but that was a non-contact injury, his Achilles injury, and that's no different than players that are 20.
That could happen at any age.
We see players that are 22 years old blowing out their Achilles on the practice field with no contact. I mean, look at what happened to Dre Greenlaw last year.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's a great
trying
point.
Dre Greenlaw's not old, and all he was doing was running onto the field, and then he blew out his Achilles. It didn't. So I mean,
that's a great point, Grant. That's a very good point. That I've totally forgot about that, and that makes a lot of sense.
But I want to get back to the core of what I was talking about.
Okay.
If you're Aaron Rodgers and you have taken the mantle of being the leader of the New York Jets, which he has done, he's in the number one media market with a franchise that has been bad for a long time. And you come out on January 9th and make those comments that I just read, and then you're not at mandatory minicamp, I'm sorry, that is a bad look. And it leaves him open for criticism, which I'm okay in doing, even though I consider him a friend. I'm criticizing Aaron because he's speaking out of both sides of his mouth. You can't come out and make that mandate and then not be at your team's mandatory minicamp. I don't care if you were there all day, every day for the voluntary OTAs. When it is mandatory and you're not there after coming out on January 9th or 8th and saying that it needs to be a full-time thing, not a half-time thing, not a sometimes thing, that you can't do that. You cannot have it both ways.
Yeah, no, I agree. You're the leader of the team. You are the reason why they drafted what they drafted in this past draft. They're trying to build around what they have with Aaron Rodgers and maximize what he has left to offer for the NFL and for the New York Jets organization. And as a leader, you must lead by example. There's no ifs and buts about it. And you can't.
And where is he? Where is he? Nobody knows what he's doing.
He's probably over there at Bennett.
It's not a family thing. Now, if it were a family emergency, I would say no problem. Hey, go for it. If you were having a baby, go for it. You know what I mean? Like there are things that I would say, oh, I don't have a problem with, even though you said it's a full-time thing. There are things that take precedence. You know, a death in the family, somebody being terminally ill. A horrible accident to a family member, the birth of a child. I mean, there are certain things that I would go, hey, no problem. But where is Aaron and what is he doing? Nobody even knows.
He was at happy hour at Bennett's.
Well, Grant, you bring up a good point, because correct me if I'm wrong. Coach Saleh, good job, Jay. Coach Saleh said that they'd known about this for months.
Yes.
So I wonder if the statements were before, after. Does it really make a big difference? I guess the point is this could have been handled better all the way around.
It should have been announced as soon as they knew that Aaron was not going to be at minicamp, so it would have been diffused. Okay,
it's not a good look.
It's a bad look that it happens as minicamp is starting. I mean, and Robert Saleh looked really bad. First of all, his grammar was embarrassing.
Yeah.
Okay. But that's nitpicking. It's a bad position to put a coach who's on the hot seat anyway. And make no mistake about it. If the Jets get off to a bad start this year, I will 100% guarantee you that Robert Saleh will be fired in the middle of the season. 100%.
From what you have read that he said, and obviously his actions, what he has demonstrated right now, it doesn't seem like they're going to have a good start.
Yeah.
Like I said, this is the leader and the quarterback, the most prized position of an NFL team. And if he's, who knows where he's at, why he's doing it. But if I had to put a guess on it, it would be his attitude. He doesn't have a good attitude about everybody else that he tried to throw under the bus. And he's allowing what those emotions that he's feeling from that dictate his current actions and just kind of like, man, F this. Y'all not even doing this. He better not
be in a cave somewhere. He better not be in one of those four. I'm just telling you.
Napes, that's what I worry about. I don't think it's to that extreme, but he's been very open about alternate medication and things. I guess Saleh,
like mushrooms and stuff.
What's that?
Well,
ayahuasca, I believe is.
I think I remember seeing something on YouTube about him getting. I don't know.
So, anyways, I guess Saleh, you could understand the frustration because Rodgers comes in and they make all these moves to get the Rodgers guys, right? Then you're stuck with the Rodgers guys last year that probably would have only been working out really well with Aaron had Aaron worked out. And then there's this surgery, Grant and Jay, where it's still a big question mark whether that Achilles is going to hold up. I know you saw him out on the field. He's been participating. but it's much different when you got the pads on and you're going full speed.
And that's what
Well,
I
yeah,
wanted to
and here's
bring
the
up
other deal. If
too.
you're going to go on Joe Rogan's podcast, that's fine. If you're going to go on Tucker Carlson's podcast and talk about Putin and everything else, okay, well, I know it's the off season, but you said that your team needs to get rid of all the bullshit.
Right.
Again, if I'm a player in that locker room, I'm looking at him going, what is the deal, man? Where are we? Are you all in, or are you only in when you want to be in? You know what I mean? That's how I'm looking at that.
Yeah, and to Ryno's point with the Achilles, is it going to hold up? I was going to say, like, it's one thing being 28 years old and snapping that Achilles, and then being his age and snapping it. How will you come back the same at 40?
Not only that, I'd be more worried about his ligaments and tendons in his other leg based on past athletes that have undergone this procedure, and then all of a sudden the following year something happens to their other limb. So
right, because they're compensating for what.
Yep.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Well, I hope not. I'd like to see him play a full year. I really would.
I hope you're right too, or I hope you're wrong too, Grant. But here's the other thing: Kirk Cousins, same procedure, right? Taking the alternative route, and then they draft Penix. And
oh my goodness! Let me tell you, I was following the Raiders draft plan so closely, and when I saw Penix get drafted, sorry to interrupt you, but that's exactly how I felt. I just was blown away. The Raiders were thinking we were going to get Penix. And then you have the Kirk Cousins for $150 million extension, sign and trade, whatever it was. And then they go and draft Michael Penix. But continue, Ryno. That was insane to me.
Well, no, it's just I'm trying to draw. There's a lot of mystery around whether this Achilles in football will hold up because it's an alternative procedure. It's not the way Kobe had. Did Kobe have his fixed this way? I could be wrong.
No.
I think
Kobe didn't need his fix. He still shot those free throws.
Yeah.
He did shoot the free throws,
but the procedure that he had is different than the procedure that Aaron Rodgers had.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
The procedure that Aaron had is a new procedure.
Yes,
it's revolutionary based on the way it used to be done. And again, that's the advancement of medical technology. Right. ACLs are completely different than they were 10 and 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago.
Oh,
my dad played college football. My dad blew out his knee, and he couldn't play anymore.
Yeah.
And he could have he was being looked at by the Baltimore Colts. He had gotten interest from a couple of teams, but when he heard that they didn't have the procedures back then, when you had your knee blown out or whatever, then you were done. You weren't playing anymore.
Done. Yeah.
Jay, interesting call. We appreciate you.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you guys.
Thanks, Jay.
Really good information. Even though we disagree on some things, it was definitely informative to be able to go back and forth. Hey, Bennett's Father's Day weekend, their brunch, their prime seafood and steak, 3 locations, Sacramento, Roseville, and Rockland. If you're down at Bennett's this weekend, tell everyone that we said hello and have yourself a great time. Go to Bennett'sRestaurants.com, make a reservation and more. They are awesome. Say hello to Brian and his staff for me and Ryno. That's Bennett's. They are top shelf. They're great. Prime seafood and steak at Bennett's.
Bring your appetite. If you get there, go to Bennett'sRestaurants.com. Reservations are available. Grant, is this true? Haunted Horse chiming in. Back in the day, they called it having a trick knee, and there was no cure. You heard trick knee before?
Yes, sure did.
All right.
He's 100% correct.
Look at that.
And there was no cure. My dad had knee issues until he died. I remember my dad's knee. My dad played tennis a lot. And, his knee would get swollen at times. He'd have to have it drained. Never had surgery on his knee. And then decided just to live with it instead of having surgery later in life. And it was all due to, medical technology. When you had an ACL back then, when I mean back then, I'm talking about even when I was in college, you would have a scar on the inside of your knee going from above your knee to way below your knee in an S. And his scar was about like that big. Okay. Ooh. And I'm not, they would open you up to fix your knee. Whereas now there's a little puncture, a little scope that's done. Yep. But back then you would have a scar that went again from the top of your knee on the inside all the way well below your knee in kind of like an S shape. They had to open up your knee completely. It was a
Wow.
very invasive surgery. It was a long recovery. Okay. And it's nothing like it is today.
Incredible. Medicine has come
Yep.
very, very far.
Well, again, I was with Scott Pollard. Oh, it was 18 hours after he had had heart surgery to have a new heart put in. Okay. And he was standing up.
Crazy. That to me is just mind-blowing. A heart, the central part of your body that pumps
Yes.
the blood everywhere, and you're on
Yep.
your 2 feet. Unreal.
I'll never forget that. And, you know, his wife, Dawn, put all the video on Facebook and everything else. And
Yeah.
to witness that with numerous tubes and wires coming out of his body, hooked up to his body. And I mean numerous. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not going to guess, but it was probably, I don't know, 25 or 30 wires and cables hooked up to his body, with his pillow completely covered in blood from where one of the tubes went into his neck. To see a guy that's 6'11" and 290 pounds then get in a prone position on the side of the bed, and then to see him stand up and then sit back down, because they wanted to make sure he wasn't going to get dizzy and faint.
Mm-hmm.
Then stand up again, then walk like 3 or 4 steps to sit down in a chair was one of the most amazing things I've ever witnessed in my life.
Wow. I remember I was tipped off that you were heading out there and he may be getting a new heart. I didn't think you were going to get anywhere close to him just
I didn't
because of
either.
exposure, you know.
He didn't even know I was coming. I was going to
Yeah.
surprise him. He was supposed to get the heart on his birthday, the Monday of that week, and he didn't. And I had already planned on going out there after I had flown in for my friend's father's funeral, which was on Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had a red-eye flight Thursday night to Nashville. And it wasn't until Thursday that I found out that they had a match for him that looked pretty good and it was promising. And it really wasn't until that morning early that he knew that he was a go and it was going to happen. So I was saying, well, I'm going to go anyway, just to hug his wife, Dawn.
Sure.
And spend some time, you know, maybe comforting her in the waiting room. And I got to Vanderbilt Medical Center about, I don't know, 9 a.m. And I sent Dawn a message. I go, hey, I'm in the waiting room. By then they knew I was coming because I had told Scott as soon as he found out that he was likely getting a heart on Thursday night, I go, hey, I have something I need to tell you. And he goes, what's that? I go, I was coming in tonight to surprise you. And I probably, if you have your heart, I won't be able to see you, but I love you, man. And I'm going to be there and I'll give Dawn a hug and blah, blah, blah. And when I texted Dawn I said, hey, I'm just letting you know, I'm in the waiting room on the 5th floor outside the Heart Center. No rush. I just want to give you a hug. And she said, I'll be right there to get you. And I'm thinking, get me. And she comes out. I give her a big hug and she goes, follow me. And I'm like, oh my God. And I walked into the intensive care down the hallway and I walked into Scott's room, and not only was Scott awake, but he was coherent. And I was able to have a normal conversation with him, which blew me away. First of all, I could not believe that I was in his room. I could not believe they would allow anyone in their room because of germs. Let's just be honest here.
How many hours after surgery was this?
Well, he got out of the operating room at, I want to say, I'm guessing now, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock Central Time.
Mm-hmm.
It was 4 o'clock Central Time. And I was in his room at 9 a.m. the next morning, Central Time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
And
So again, so like medical technology, I know we got off on a tangent here.
no,
I always tell people this, and I hope I may have to tell myself this someday. If you right now are suffering from cancer or a disease, hang on, man.
Yep.
Hang on and do everything you can to fight, because you never know what's going to be coming down the pipe tomorrow, right? You
Amen.
don't know. And you have to hope for miracles, and you have to hope that modern technology is going to advance to a point where maybe you are saved, whereas so many others with the same ailment as you could not be saved due to the lack of medical technology during that era, right? So you have to hope, because there are miracles that are coming out every day in the world of medicine.
No doubt, 100%. I went through my own struggles, not trying to compare it to Scott last year, and just even that would have been a much bigger process 10 years ago, 15
Yeah.
years ago.
So,
And speaking of Scott, he was on with you. Go to, if you don't like that, if you are not
Yeah.
subscribed, he was on a few months ago, and what an amazing conversation just about the whole process. Go ahead.
Thank you for saying that. I don't mean to step on you, but thank you for saying that.
Yep.
I was amazing, wasn't it?
Yeah, and you learn so much. Scott's mindset, there's a lot of stuff there that blew me away, blew a lot of the viewers away. But then about donors and the process, really incredible stuff.
I did a one-word game with him where I said something and I said, give me your immediate reaction. And my last one was John Doe, whose heart is beating inside you right now. And that to me was the most powerful response in his whole interview. And like, I didn't ever stop and think until Scott went through the situation of what it was like for him in bed, in the hospital, knowing that the only way that he would be able to live would be if somebody died.
Yep.
You know, that's a very powerful, mind effing.
100%.
You find out that you are going to be getting a heart, and while your family is rejoicing that you will hopefully get a new lease on life if your body does not reject the heart, there's a family, unbeknownst to you, because they don't tell you who the donor is and you don't know anything about their background, who's grieving and going through the pain of losing a loved one. And yet on the other side of the fence, there's a family who's crying with joys of tears because their loved one is getting a new lease on life because somebody just lost their life.
Yeah, it's you talk about those moments like I would take a bullet for you, like not only are you in that moment, you're battling just what you explained, your mortality versus somebody else's. I thought Scott's answers to that were incredible. And then meeting the person, if it works out, it's not even up to you if you can meet them.
No, it's not up to you. It's up to them. Scott wrote a letter to the family, which again, he doesn't know who the family is, doesn't know anything about them, but wrote a letter of gratitude. And that family does receive the letter. And then from that point forward, it is up to them whether they want to further that relationship and go from there. I will only tell you that on that Friday morning, there was a lot of talk from Scott and Dawn about the donor. They brought that individual's, not name, but they brought the individual up on numerous occasions praying for that family because they knew that that family was going through a very rough time. So as Scott was in the bed with a new heart, both he and Dawn were at times openly praying and thinking about the donor and the donor's family. Powerful, man.
Powerful.
Very powerful.
Knock you off your feet. Powerful.
Yeah. So you know what? With that being said, for those of you that are going to be with loved ones this weekend and your dad, you know what? You rejoice and have a great time because you never know when's going to be the last time. I had my dad on my radio show on Friday before Father's Day 2007, and my father was sharp as a whip, driving, doing everything. Had even been playing golf at age 82, and then he suddenly died in November of that year. And I didn't get a chance to have that conversation with my dad. I always, we're going off in a lot of directions here. I didn't have a chance to say goodbye to my dad because my dad was healthy and he died suddenly. Sometimes when you're with a loved one or a parent in particular, and maybe they're in hospice, I just had my friend who was in hospice with his father for a period of time, and they had closure. They got a chance to have that closure. I didn't get that with my dad. The last conversation I had with my dad, I was on the team bus outside the arena in New Orleans on Halloween night of 2007 after the Kings had lost the opening night game to the Pelicans, because he watched every game and we always talked after every game, and it was normally on the bus. And I remember having a brief conversation with my dad because it was quiet. We had just lost. There were a couple of players already on, and the atmosphere on a team bus when you win and lose is night and day. Okay. And so I talked to my dad. We talked about, a little bit about the game and about the broadcast. And I said, Dad, it's kind of quiet on here. I'll call you. We'll talk when I get to San Antonio. That phone call never came. I never had a chance to talk to my dad again. That was the last conversation that I had with my dad. And I remember exactly where I was. And every time I used to go to New Orleans and get on the bus in the same location, I couldn't help but think about, gee, this is the last place that I spoke to my dad. So this weekend, Father's Day, you never know. Tomorrow's not guaranteed to anyone. Cherish it, love it, and have yourself a fabulous time.
Well said, Napes. Well said.
Yep. All right. Before we wrap up today's show, I also want to say thank you to Blazona Development and their development, Sunrise Landing, which is a beautiful development. It is the newest residential community in Calusa. And if you go to CalusaSunrise.com, you can check out one of these 6 models. No Mellorews, no homeowners, adjacent from the Calusa Golf and Country Club, close to I-5, Highway 45, Highway 20. It's Sunrise Landing in Calusa from Blazona Development. And all you need to do is go to CalusaSunrise.com. That is CalusaSunrise.com, and check out Sunrise Landing. Well,
Nailed
on that
it.
note, go
Nailed
ahead.
it.
Thank you, buddy.
Yep.
I appreciate
Well
that.
done. Well done.
Thank you. I hope you have a happy Father's Day, my friend. Have yourself a great time, and we can still get to some more phone calls here.
All right. Sounds good. Let's bring Baki in. How you doing tonight, Bak?
What's up, guys?
Hey there.
How are you doing?
How are you?
I'm fine. It's a great morning right here. Very sunny, very warm. How about
Good.
you?
Well, in Florida, if you like flooding and not being able to drive and, 25 inches of rain in 48 hours, it's a little bit different than where you are.
Okay. May I ask you something which is nothing about basketball? I'm very curious. So we're talking sometimes, and I see and I know that your knowledge of sport in general is exceptional. And of course, Ryno is great also. But now I'm talking about your knowledge of sport. I mean, tennis, NBA. You're going all the stuff. It's amazing, really, and I really am. So I don't have words to say. So knowing that, I'm a little bit confused. How come you don't follow the world's most popular sport like soccer is? So
because I didn't have any time for it on my calendar. I don't have any time for soccer. In America, you're consumed by the 4 major sports, which is basketball, football, baseball, and hockey. And quite frankly, soccer is not that popular in America compared to the other 4 sports, although it is growing. Well, wait a minute. Let me finish. It is growing in interest. The only time I really took a liking to soccer was because I was living in New York when Pele played for the New York Cosmos, and they used to sell out, Giant Stadium with 75,000 people there. And Pele was a household name, and everyone talked about that. But quite frankly, you probably won't like my answer. I find soccer to be a very boring sport. There's not enough action for me. There's not enough shots on goals for me. And even though I thoroughly enjoyed watching the World Cup last year between France and Argentina, and I thought it was thrilling, I've tried to watch soccer at times, and quite frankly, it just doesn't interest me. It doesn't captivate me enough. It doesn't have enough action for me to become a fan. So I just don't really care for it, number one. And number two, I don't have really time for it on my schedule because I'm consumed by not only the four major sports, but I'm watching the U.S. Open all weekend. I'll watch the French Open. I'm watching the U.S. Open. I'm watching Wimbledon. I just don't really have time on my calendar for soccer, and on the factor that it doesn't interest me.
Okay, very interesting. Did you see some of the games from MLS last year? Maybe.
I think the MLS is a bad product. And even though I don't watch the MLS, the fact that Messi at his age can come over from, the World Cup and being such a star on Argentina, and at his age come over and dominate the MLS as if it's men against boys, just tells me that the MLS is not really a quality league in terms of what I'm watching when a player like Messi at this stage of his career and his age can come over and dominate the league. What do you think about that?
This is a great point from you. I watched MLS some years before, but this last year I didn't see, maybe one or two games, and absolutely Messi with his age doing the stuff he's doing all with the guys. Okay, they have Suarez, they have a few more players from Europe, but dominance like that in those years, it's really spot on.
Let me ask you a question. If you took the best team in the MLS and took them, and let's say you played against Man City or Man U or Liverpool, or take any team, but let's just say Liverpool, for example, or who's your favorite team in the Premier League?
Well, I'm not that
just pick
obsessed
a team
with Premier League, but in Premier League, I like Liverpool. I like Liverpool because of
what would happen if you took the best team in the MLS and had them play a match against Liverpool? What would the final score be?
Well, I mean, if the serious game serious.
You're playing every player on the winning team gets $1 million. So yeah, let's call it serious. Grant, what's the final score going to be?
I mean, they will be favorites, no doubt about it. But
what are they going to win by? 5 goals, 7 goals, 10 goals?
No. I don't give them that. No way. Because Messi and Suarez and that squad is really good, and they can put up some great fight even with those clubs. I mean, football, okay, soccer is not the same last 10, 15 years as before. You mentioned Pele, you mentioned Maradona, you can mention all those great footballers from the past, but it's not the same even in Europe this year. So I don't give them 5 or 6 or 7 like you said. But okay,
I would. I don't know enough about soccer, but I would if you told me that the over under on the winning margin would be 4 goals, I would take the over. I would say Liverpool would beat the best team in the MLS by 4 or more goals.
Well, they can, but doesn't be for sure. I don't know.
But I back to your initial question, I'm not anti-soccer. I just don't find it interesting enough for me to follow it, and I don't really have the room on my sports calendar to become a fan.
Can I hop in really quick?
Yes.
Just
really of course. I'm just waiting for you.
Yeah. So every time I try to get into a soccer game and I'm starting to enjoy it, when I see a stretcher come out because somebody was barely grazed, I can't deal with that. I don't get it. It's like
terrible.
Fix the game, give them timeouts, do mandatory breaks, whatever it needs to be.
Turns me off.
yeah, it's hard to take the sport seriously sometimes.
Turns me off.
There is very interesting sequence from the FIFA. I think 10 years ago, FIFA was trying to put some to change the rules in the soccer, and they asked all the associations about how about we change the game and we put the clock stop every time the referee whistle in the game. Do you know, from the 50 association members, do you know how many of them voted for yes?
I don't know.
Only one. It was USA. And I'm
Interesting.
telling it, I'm saying that every time, every day, because we are mad for soccer right here, and we are watching it all,
Hey,
especially when World Cup or the European
I
Cup
know.
is. And
I
we are
know. When
saying
I'm with,
this
hey,
is
every time I'm with
absolutely.
Vladi, every time
I,
I'm with Vladi Divac, he's on his phone watching soccer somewhere. He's addicted
yeah,
to it like you are. No, I'm just telling you, he watches it all the freaking time. And it doesn't matter what time it is. Even if he's in the States and his favorite team in Serbia is playing, he'll get up in the middle of the night to watch it. So I get it. I get the love. I get the passion. And I don't mean to step on you, but if I were in charge of soccer, which I'm not, if you wanted to get people like Grant Napier interested in soccer and get more Americans to be like European fans, I would get rid of offsides. I would take the offsides out of soccer. I would eliminate it and open up the game where there would be a hell of a lot more action, a lot more exciting action on the goal. To me, when I watch soccer, my biggest complaint is I can watch soccer for an hour and see one shot on goal. For me, as a typical, and if I can say the word typical, American sports fan, that is boring. I want to see action. I want to see shots on goal. I want to see saves. Get rid of offsides. Open up the damn game. That's what I would do.
well, getting rid of the offside will never come.
I
Be
know.
sure for that.
I know it won't, but I'm saying that's what I would do.
My point is, the only one country voted for stopping and making the game more honest and more fair. And I am definitely not understanding, because they are making everything about to stop the game, to spoil it, to something. I don't know. I
They
tell
got rid of the
everybody,
two
okay,
line. They got
why
rid of
don't
the
you?
2 line offsides pass in hockey, and it completely opened up the game and made it a lot more exciting. You can now pass the puck over 2 lines, where in the past it would be offsides.
Yeah,
And you know what?
for
It opened up the whole game, and I love it.
but I'm always about how sports in USA, you can take all the sports. You have okay, there will always be some yelling of the referees, even in NBA, in NFL, in like this, like that. But this is nothing in comparing with European sports, uh, especially soccer, and of course in basketball. So if we could have better sport, more fair, like stopping the time and making it more fair, that will be stopping the clock every time the ball goes out, every time fouls occurs on the court. And I don't know why all the associations are voting against it. I mean,
Baki, I
I
would
don't
say,
understand.
Baki, to me, and I'm not the educated soccer guy, it sounds like a little bit of the old school baseball mind, where they don't like changing the rules a lot. It's pastime. It's how the
Yeah,
game's
Ryno,
always
but
been. It's
you
part
have
of the
in
game.
tennis, they change everything. They change the courts. They are moving those roofs. Do you know? Maybe you didn't play tennis, but Grant played tennis maybe a
I
lot
did.
of times in the different places. So when you put the roof on the court, and the tournament is calling, and the tournament has called French Open or Australian Open. This is not the Open anymore. I mean, simply word Open, but it's the different game. It's the different game when you're playing with the wind or with the air, and when
Sure.
you're playing indoor. So you're making the Wimbledon indoor tournament. You're making the French Open indoor tournament. This is not the same tennis. This is not the same. Okay, it's the same for both guys, of course, but they are always something new. They're always changing something. Only in soccer, they are not changing a thing. So this is very frustrating. Everybody are for it, but it never happened. Never happened. I don't know why. What
Yeah.
is the point if you steal the game? Okay, my point. I don't see it. I don't see it really.
Well,
I
Baki, it's interesting, interesting points, and we really appreciate you calling the show. I hope I answered your question satisfactorily. The main two reasons are I don't really care for it, and I don't have time on my calendar, and that's it. If I
just one
really
more.
liked it, I would make time for it on my calendar. But I've tried it, I've sampled it, I've continued to watch it at times for 5, 10, 15 minutes. And again, bottom line, there's just not enough action for me.
Just one reminder: if I say if you find a little of your time Sunday, let me say,
Not
okay,
happening.
it's not
Not
happening
happening.
because
Not
England
happening.
is playing Serbia and it's
Not
gonna be
happening.
rocking.
No,
It's gonna be
I don't have
rocking.
any time on Sunday. Sunday is U.S. Open, Grant Napier, Father's Day time.
Yeah, I know.
Soccer will not enter my mind at all on Sunday for even 10 seconds.
They say we are not gonna have a dog in the streets when the game gonna play.
Oh,
Well,
wow.
good luck. Good luck to Serbia. Enjoy it, and thank you for calling the show, my friend. You take care.
Thank you for your answers and have a nice evening, guys.
Appreciate
You too, my
Baki.
friend. You too, Baki. Appreciate you.
You never know what he's going to bring up, but always knows his sports.
Yeah, he
Passionate
does.
about
And
his
that was a
sports.
great question, and I appreciate him asking me that question because I've been pretty consistent about that. I know your idol Jim Rome feels the same way about soccer as I do.
He's done a little bit of a churn, but yes, you guys are on the same team when it comes to kicking the round ball around. All right. You want to bring Zach up really quick?
Yeah, he'll wrap up the show. Zach,
Yeah.
you'll be our final caller.
Welcome in, Zach.
Hey, thanks for allowing me to come on. Hey, so I wanted to actually give my own perspective on soccer for someone that actually played it for was like 9 years back when I was a kid. As far as soccer, like, you know, that was the first sport that my parents got me into. I forgot how I got into it. I was 5, you know.
Mhm.
It was around 7 or 8. My dad got me into basketball, and then that became my number one sport. But let me tell you, to Grant's credit, to back Grant with this, throughout my whole entire years of playing soccer as a kid, I probably only watched soccer like maybe like for an hour of my whole entire span. Because when you watch it professionally, there is really not that many shots on goal. It's literally just like a lot of back and forth near the midfield. And I'll admit, yeah, it can be boring. But I will say this, I think the younger levels, because they're not as skilled, there is a lot of more back and forth as far as like shots on goal. But like, I mean, it's one of those sports, like if you play it, especially if you're like, you know, midfield, forward, it's a lot of fun. But if you're like goalie or defense, it can be kind of boring. But yeah, I just want to give my thoughts on that. I mean, I think overall, like, it's one of those sports, if you don't play it and you're just out in the stands watching, it can be might kind of wear on you.
Hey, Zach, how old are you? If you don't mind me asking.
I am not going to give an exact age, but I am in my mid-20s.
Mid-20s. Perfect. That's
Why would
what
you
I
not
need.
give an exact age? Who
Just-
cares?
Just personal.
Fair enough.
Okay.
That gives
Okay.
me enough. That's what I needed to know. When you were a kid, you had to have some type of exotic sports package to be watching the type of soccer, the Premier League, the stuff that you can find normally now that kids that age that are just getting into the game now. So we only saw, at least I only saw the, you know, US or the World Cup and things like that.
I mean, like, I remember, I think back when I was like, because I played from ages 5 to 14, and then I only stopped because of it was had to do something like with like the personal, my personal life, not my personal life, but like with the whole coaching or like long story short, like our coach that I loved, everyone loved, he got blackballed for some bogus reason. And then after that, I just didn't want to play for another coach. So then after that, I just focused on basketball. But I mean, I think there was like maybe a few times during that span, I did watch like the USA team in the what do they call it? The World Cup.
Mhm.
So I would watch it like if it was like, you know, what would they, Ryan? What do you call it, like a playoff game in the World Cup when it's like
it's a tournament. They have group play and then they go into the elimination.
So whenever, because I remember like my dad would say like, "Hey, you know the USA team is on." I was like, "Okay, yeah, I guess I'll watch it." But I don't know if I remember paying that close attention to it. I mean, like, you know, like I said, like my dad got me into basketball like in a league when I was like 7, 8. And so like, you know, from that time, I would always watch Sacramento, you know, and then as you know, as I got a little older, then I was just start watching, you know, every single basketball game that I could. And obviously when you're in grade school, it's kind of hard to manage to watch as much basketball as you can because your parents only allow you to watch so much TV. So, but no, I mean, like soccer, like it's, I think I'm looking at Grant. Maybe you could do this at least. Go to like, I don't know. Do you have any friends that have like young kids that play soccer? Because I think if you're
I have a lot of friends that have that play soccer.
I think if you were to watch like a kids league, like, you know, like U14, you might have a different perspective.
Zach, you have a good weekend. All right. Stop wasting my time. Okay. Hey, Ryno, happy Father's Day. Okay. Sorry, Zach, but I'm not going to sit here and talk about going to kids soccer games when we're doing a show like this. Okay. I appreciate your call. I appreciate your background, but enough's enough. Okay. I'm not going to go to a kids soccer game and then all of a sudden start appreciating soccer. Stop it with this nonsense. Ryno. I don't know what else to say.
Well, Zach, this is on me. I sent Nate some soccer videos of me coaching my son I barely kept my job, Zach.
He did.
So,
he did. He did send me. He did. He absolutely did. And that is the truth. Okay. And guess what? After he sent me the video, Zach, I didn't all of a sudden start gravitating to soccer because I enjoyed it more. All right.
No, he did not.
If I want to laugh my ass off, I'll go to watch the kids play soccer because to me, that's nothing more than a comedy routine. All right.
Exactly. And that's what it should be at that age.
Exactly. Have fun.
Exactly.
Ryno, happy Father's Day, buddy.
You too, Napes.
To everyone else, thank you very much for joining us. Have a great weekend and stay safe. All right. And watch soccer. Make Baki happy.
Round ball.
Baki's birthday's on Tuesday. Make him happy. Watch soccer this weekend.